This right here is my global variable system, which allows me to keep all of my important variables in one place and access them from any blueprint in my entire project. This makes it a lot easier to tweak values and test plays, since you can even change them while the game is running and you won't have to hunt through hundreds of blueprints just to find one variable you're looking for. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to set up the system through data assets and also how to use it. First of all, global variables are generally frowned upon because they can make debugging a lot harder, and the whole move to object-oriented programming partially happened because of them. So what we'll create here today has the benefits of global variables without the downsides, since what we make is technically a singleton constant and not really a global variable, but more about that later. The first thing we need is a primary data asset, which bundles all of the global variables into one nice package and gives us a graphical interface to easily update them. Right-click to create a new blueprint class. Under all classes, look for primary data asset, click it, and then click on select. I will call this PDA underscore global variables. Double click to open it up, and in here we can then, under the variables, set all of the variables that we want to have access to. I will just create a single one that I call game speed, and I will just make it of type float for the purposes of this tutorial. But in here you can use all types of variables, not just simple variables. You can use arrays, you can use mappings, and you can also use objects and structs here. Now I wouldn't just put everything in here, but just things that have a wide impact on your game that many different blueprints need to know about. In the case of my RPG, these are things such as the max amount of save slots, the array of level XP, encounter distance, and many different delays and multipliers. Once you have the variable, compile, and then on the right side for the default value, let's just set 1.0 as the default value. Great, and now that we have this primary data asset, we can go back here and we can create multiple data assets from it. So I can right click, look for data asset, and then here we have the data asset with a pie chart, and we want to select the PDA global variables here, and click on select, and I will call this DA underscore global variables underscore shipping, and these are all the values we will actually ship with the game. But we want to create another one just for debugging, so we can have different settings, different variables that make debugging easier for us when we test play the game. I can just right click this and then duplicate it, and then just call it debug instead. And let's say in the one for debug, I can open up the interface here. We want to have a game speed of 3.0 to allow us to faster test play the game. Okay, great, now we have these values set up here, but we still can't really access them easily in the blueprints. So what I want to do now is to create a game instance blueprint, which is a singleton that can be accessed from anywhere, and then set this data asset as a member variable of it. Now, if you already have a game instance, you can just use that one, but otherwise create a new one here. Right click, blueprint class, and we can look for game instance. And I want to click this one, select it, and I will just call gi underscore core. To then use this game instance, I have to set it, so edit, project settings, maps and modes, and here at the bottom for the game instance class, use the gi core. And I can close this down and also close these. Now double click and open up the gi core, and in here, I want to set a new variable here, and this should be the global variables, and it should be of the type PDA global variables, which is the primary data asset object reference. Compile and save, and now here I can pick if I want to use the shipping version or the debug version, and let's use the debug version for now for testing. Okay, now inside of this game instance blueprint, I can just drag out the global variables, I can get them, and then I can get game speed, which is the variable that we set up, and then, yeah, it's just gonna give me the value. And this is great, but of course, I want to be able to access this not just from the game instance, but also from the game mode, maybe from the third-person character blueprint, and many other different places in this project. The game speed is actually something I want to use in the game mode, so let me just delete this and showcase how we can access it. Now, this template already has the third-person game mode. If you don't have a game mode yet, you can just right-click Blueprint class, create a new game mode, and then you again want to set it in the project settings. But I will just use this one, the third-person game mode, and I'll open it up. And I want to use the begin play node here. And yeah, now I want to access these global variables here. I can just right-click, get game instance, and this gives me the generic game instance, but it doesn't understand this is GI core, so I can't get global variables. I actually have to cast, so I can cast to GI core, and then I can here get global variables like this, and then here I can get game speed, the one that we set up. Now this is one way to go about it. Let me just connect this, and I can then here set global time dilation to use this to actually set the game speed and update the game. And this will actually work. Now the game is running 3 times as fast. We use the value that we set up in the data asset. But using a cast here is not ideal. Casting to a game instance is not a big deal because it is in memory anyway, and just calling this node isn't really that heavy on execution. But for flow control, this does not look great. This is a lot of stuff that we have here. What if the cast fails, and so on. So just for the sake of flow control, using an interface is actually better here. So back here, I want to create a new interface, blueprint, a blueprint interface. I will call it BPI global variables, double click, and then here I'll just call it get global variables. This needs to have an output, again called global variables, of the type PDA global variables object reference. I can compile and save, and then back in the GI core, I need to implement this interface. So in the class settings, I go to the interfaces, and here global variables. And then here on the left side, I get the interface function, get global variables. And here, I just have to grab them and pass them back through. Now I want to compile and save. And back in the game mode, instead of casting to GI core, I can now here just get global variables, which calls the interface like this. And then I can also get rid of this and just connect right here. So we got rid of a couple of nodes here. One more great thing this allows us to do is to go back to the GI core. On the global variables, I can make this a private variable, which means I can't set or get it from other blueprints outside of the GI core. I can now only get it through the blueprint interface as I'm doing here. And this prevents other blueprints from overriding it, changing the value, and so on. In addition, I also want to set it to blueprint read only, basically setting it to a constant. So this means even inside of the game instance, I cannot set this anymore. You see, the set global variables is gone now. So I now know this will always have the same value that we set once we package the game or before we start the game. And this is what I mean when I said this is more so a constant singleton, because it avoids the problems with global variables of values changing while the game is running and making debugging very hard. So we just get the benefits without the downsides here. Now, one last problem we still have, if we go to the game mode, we can actually set game speed here. And we, again, don't want to be able to do this. To prevent this, I can just go back into the PDA global variables, and also for the game speed, make sure it is just blueprint read only, compile and save. And now here, even if we call it, it doesn't work anymore, I can now try to do it again, set game speed, and it won't allow me to do it anymore. Again, turning this into a constant that cannot be changed once the game starts. Now again, depending on your case, you might want to be able to change these, but then we go into the territory of bad practice, and I would just handle this as a constant, where we only want to change the values in this data asset before the game starts. And we can now use this pattern everywhere in any blueprint that we need to have access to this. We could go in here and add more variables, like maybe the XP thresholds, the run speed of your character, whatever you want to do. But we can make it even better because one problem now is we have these execution nodes here, and depending on whatever you're making, this might be a bit clunky. We can use a blueprint function library to make this even more compact. So here I can right-click again, go to blueprint, make a blueprint function library, and I will call it BPFL global variables, double click, I'll call it get global variables, then here right click, get game instance, and then here I can get global variables, and very important, it is the BPI version, which uses the interface, and now I just want to have a return node here, and just drag this in here, compile and save. And now back in the game mode, I can get rid of this and get rid of this. I can just right click, get global variables from the BPFL. Right now it still has the execution pins. I can just go back in here. I can make sure it is a pure function, compile and save again. Back in the game mode, now I can just get the global variables like this. And now this makes it very, very compact. Now we just have the get global variables and whatever value we want to use here. And in the RPG, it looks like this, where I just have the get global variables, get the flee chance, get the delay flee, and all of these different variables, the play rate for the move back to active, and yeah, again, the delay for the battle lost here. And this just makes it very compact. We can use it in many different places, And then we just have to update the values here without having to hunt through all of the different blueprints, and we just have one central locations for our values that we want to tweak. And this is how we set up a very simple system that has the benefits of global variables without the downsides. And we can call these from any blueprint, we can easily update them. We can have different data assets, one for shipping, one for debugging, so we can maybe test play the game faster and then just set it back to shipping once we make a build. So I hope this will be helpful for your project, and as always, a huge thanks to my awesome patrons and YouTube channel members.